Okay, I'll be honest with you. Out of every single creature I've ever researched for this channel, this is the one that has haunted me the longest. Look at what's swimming on your screen right now. Skin so pale and translucent, it's almost pink. The kind of pink where, if you stare long enough, you can actually see the blood vessels flickering underneath like tiny neon signs deep inside tissue. The snout is long and flat, like a massive ruler, jutting out in front of the rest of its face way farther than any reasonable snout needs to go. And the jaw, that jaw, just sitting there, looking completely harmless and tucked neatly underneath. Well, we'll get to that. Trust me, you are not ready for it yet. This is the goblin shark, Mitsukurina owstoni, if you want the full scientific name for added drama. And today I'm not just telling you about a shark, I'm telling you about a creature that has existed on this planet for 125 million years and hasn't bothered to meaningfully change during that entire stretch of time. 125 million years. Ugh, can you even wrap your head around that number? When this shark's ancestors first showed up, T-Rex hadn't been born yet. Flowers didn't exist anywhere on Earth. Grass didn't exist. Humans? Oh, don't even go there. Our ancestors at that point were tiny, scurrying little mammals, desperately trying not to get stepped on by the dozen species of giant reptiles running the entire show. And the goblin shark just kept swimming, through all of it, unbothered, unchanged. Okay, so before I get into how this thing survived absolutely everything the planet threw at it, let me properly introduce our main character. The goblin shark is the only living member of the family Mitsukurinidae. The only one. Not one of a few. The only one. Every single relative it ever had has gone extinct, leaving it as the sole surviving heir of a dynasty that completely collapsed, still showing up every day like nothing happened. No restructuring, no pivot strategy, no layoffs, just the same job description it had 125 million years ago. Scientists call creatures like this living fossil species whose body shape and structure have barely changed over tens or hundreds of millions of years. You might know the coelacanth that ancient lobe-finned fish scientists assumed had been extinct for 65 million years, until a fisherman off the coast of South Africa pulled one up in 1938, and the entire scientific community nearly fell off their chairs simultaneously. That's a living fossil. Horseshoe crabs, too, essentially unchanged in body plan for around 450 million years, outliving pretty much everything. But the goblin shark alone in its entire family, barely moving an evolutionary inch in 125 million years, operates on a completely different level from all of them. And if you're still not convinced, take a look at this. Here's a fossilized tooth from one of its ancestors, excavated from Cretaceous-era rock layers, roughly 100 million years old. Now place it side by side with a tooth pulled from a modern goblin shark. Do you see a meaningful difference between them? I don't either. Okay, now, let's talk about the thing I know you've been curious about since the first 30 seconds of this video. That jaw. In its resting state, the goblin shark's jaw sits neatly tucked and folded beneath that impossibly long snout. Looks completely normal, very harmless. The kind of creature you'd pass in a dark hallway every single day. The quiet coworker who never makes noise, never starts drama, never draws attention to themselves, and you've basically forgotten they exist until one specific, very dramatic moment. The jaw fires. Not opens, not slides. Fires, both upper and lower jaw, launching forward almost to the very tip of that snout, locking onto prey before it can even begin to process what's happening, then snapping back to resting position in less than 1/10 of a second. What? Yeah, you absolutely read that correctly. You've seen Alien, right? That scene where the creature opens its mouth and a second inner jaw shoots out from inside? Director Ridley Scott and designer H.R. Geiger were called geniuses for that concept. Here's the thing, though. Nature engineered this exact mechanism 125 million years ago. Nobody had to pay royalties. This feature, called a protrusible jaw, works through a highly specialized system of ligaments and cartilage that allows the entire feeding apparatus to essentially launch outward, without the rest of the body needing to lunge forward. For a creature living in total, absolute darkness more than 1,000 meters below the surface, one that can't outrun prey on speed alone, this is the perfect engineering solution. Stay perfectly still. Wait with infinite patience. Let the prey drift into range. And close the deal in 1/10 of a second before anything has time to react. And that long, flat snout, not just an unusual aesthetic choice. It's covered in thousands of incredibly sensitive electroreceptors called ampullae of Lorenzini, which can detect the extremely faint electromagnetic fields produced by the muscles and nerves of living creatures nearby. In the pitch-black deep ocean, these are the goblin shark's real eyes. It doesn't need to see you. It can sense your bioelectric field before you even register its presence in the same water column. So you've got an animal with a built-in electromagnetic radar system running along its face, paired with a spring-loaded jaw that fires faster than a human eye can follow. And somehow we ended up calling ourselves the apex species. Debatable. Okay, now we get to the part I find most extraordinary about this entire story. How did this bizarre, deep-sea creature survive everything the planet threw at it? Let's talk numbers for a second, because the scale here is genuinely staggering. In the history of life on Earth, scientists have identified 5 major mass extinction events, moments when the planet essentially hit a hard reset on the majority of life that existed at the time. The worst of these happened around 252 million years ago, at the end of the Permian period. Paleontologists call it the Great Dying. And for good reason. An estimated 96% of all marine species and 70% of all land vertebrate species vanished from the planet. 96%. That means for every 100 species alive at that point, only 4 made it to the other side. Whatever triggered it, a combination of volcanic activity, climate collapse, and ocean acidification, it was the closest life on Earth has ever come to simply ending. And then there's the one everyone knows. 66 million years ago, when an asteroid roughly 10 to 15 kilometers wide slammed into what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula at nearly 20 kilometers per second, when wildfires swept across entire continents, when debris and dust blocked sunlight for years, and when 75% of all species on this planet vanished forever, including every non-avian dinosaur. Where was the goblin shark? It was swimming, about 1,200 meters down, completely unaware that anything unusual was happening above its head. The deep ocean, it turns out, is one of the most stable and consistent environments anywhere on this planet. At depths between 200 and 1,300 meters, the goblin shark's home range water temperature stays nearly constant year-round, hovering just a few degrees above freezing. Sunlight never penetrates. Ocean storms and surface swells don't disturb it. An asteroid impact obliterating the surface world. That is very much a surface problem. Down here, life moves in cold darkness, slowly and methodically, almost completely undisturbed by whatever catastrophe is currently unfolding thousands of meters above. Think of it like a reinforced underground bunker that nature built for itself not as a deliberate survival strategy, but simply because it had always existed there long before there was anything worth hiding from. And when genuine civilization-ending catastrophe arrived, it turned out to be the perfect shelter without requiring a single modification. This is the real secret behind the goblin shark's survival. When your environment doesn't change, evolutionary pressure is nearly zero. Evolution, at its core, is a living organism's response to pressure from its surroundings. New pressure demands new solutions, but no new pressure means no need for new answers. If the strategy has been running perfectly for 125 million years, why would you touch it? The goblin shark found the right answer a very long time ago, and it was wise enough not to fix what wasn't broken. But here's the part of this story that I think is actually the most fascinating. It's not what we know about the goblin shark. It's everything we didn't know until extremely recently. Throughout the entire history of deep-sea research, every goblin shark that science had ever actually studied was an accidental catch, dragged up to the surface by deep-sea fishing nets or long lines, where it would survive a few disoriented minutes at surface pressure, just long enough for some photographs. Before dying, we studied the dead ones. We analyzed fossilized teeth and jaw structures. We built elaborate behavioral theories from specimens that never chose to be specimens and never got to go back home. But no one, not once, in the entire history of marine biology had ever seen this animal alive, moving freely in its own environment, on its own terms. Until June 2026, a team of oceanographers from the University of Hawaii, led by Dr. Brennan Phillips, published a landmark paper in the Journal of Fish Biology, documenting 2 separate live video recordings of a goblin shark in its natural habitat. The first was captured in 2019 at a depth of 1,237 meters near Jarvis Island in the central Pacific Ocean, filmed by a remotely operated vehicle called Hercules. The second was recorded during a 2024 expedition to the Tonga Trench, nearly 700 meters deeper than any previous confirmed goblin shark sighting on record. That last detail alone should stop you in your tracks. We had to go 700 meters deeper into one of the most extreme environments on this planet just to find where it actually spends its time. Total usable footage from both sightings, approximately 20 seconds. 50 days of continuous underwater recording across multiple expeditions. 20 seconds of footage. And in those 20 seconds, the goblin shark drifted past the camera with total, complete indifference. Not curious, not startled, not anything. Just a creature going about its day, entirely unbothered by the glowing metal machine hovering in the darkness, 1,200 meters beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean. Oh, and honestly, for something that has been doing this longer than the entire span of recorded human history multiplied by several thousand, maybe that's exactly the attitude it's entitled to have. Here's what I want you to take away when you close this video. We live in an era that treats evolution as a synonym for constant reinvention, where standing still means falling behind, where not changing means failing, where disruption is the highest virtue. We apply that logic to our industries, our careers, our relationships, ourselves. But the goblin shark has outlasted 5 mass extinction events, catastrophes that collectively erased up to 96% of every species that had ever walked, crawled, swum, or flown on this planet, and it did it without meaningfully changing a single thing about itself. Over those 125 million years, the rulers of the ocean have taken turns, rising to dominance and disappearing into the fossil record. Megalodon, the largest shark that ever lived, stretching potentially 15 to 20 meters long, went extinct around 3.5 million years ago. Mosasaurus dominated the Cretaceous seas with a body built for raw destruction, then vanished completely. Dynasty after dynasty, each one convinced it was the permanent, final version of power in the ocean. The goblin shark is still here, still swimming in the dark at 1,200 meters. Still the same jaw, the same snout, the same electromagnetic sensors, the same patient, motionless waiting strategy it's been running since before the first flower ever opened on dry land. Sometimes the smartest move isn't to keep changing everything. Sometimes it's to find exactly the right place to stand and stay there, perfectly still, while the rest of the world collapses and rebuilds itself around you. If you're into stories like this, the genuinely strange corners of the natural world, creatures that have outlasted everything we thought we understood about survival, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week, we go deeper.